Sounds good. Thanks so much. And I'm assuming you can see the slides?
Yes.
Oh, great. All right. Well, thanks so much. What a wonderful opening and kind words about Maxar. I think right now is when you see the real value of the satellite imagery business. As you look at the conflict in Ukraine, you'll see Maxar imagery on CNN and BBC. And, what we see from space is ground truth. And Maxar is a unique company in that we build the satellites, operate them, bring the imagery down, run the ground station, process the imagery, and deliver the final image. So we have chain of custody from the moment the picture is taken all the way until it's delivered. So we know what we're seeing on the ground. And as fake imagery or deep fakes come into this world, are those tanks at the border? And satellite imagery can give you that guarantee. I run the enterprise business at Maxar, which for us means the commercial side, B2B, B2C companies. We're organized around our customers so that we stay customer first. Before I talk a little bit about Maxar and about the exciting time we're in right now, where satellite imagery and specifically 3D products are going to start driving quite a bit of consumer and business behavior, I always start with imagery. It's the foundation of our business. And sometimes we forget to look at it. We get into the analytics, we get into the AI. We forget that we're looking at individual people from space here. This is, I asked for some imagery over Canada, and it's always interesting to see what the team comes up with. And this is apparently your truckers were very upset about having to wear masks and COVID like the rest of us. And we'd helped out with the floods in Alberta. And then I asked for a shot of British Columbia, which is just beautiful. Actually, I've traveled quite a bit in Canada, made my way up to Resolute Bay, which I think is rare for an American to get that far north. But it's really a beautiful country up north. So a bit about Maxar. I mentioned that we're a full life cycle space company. And people sometimes ask, the bankers asking, why do you have a space business and an Earth intelligence business? The multiples are different. Space is hard, the construction, etc. It means that we stay really close and in touch with the satellite side so that we know how hard it is to get these birds in the sky and how valuable it is to drive our imagery. So Maxar, is probably most known for the digital globe business and the Earth imagery that we do. But this company builds all of the robot arms that are on Mars. This company's got an Artemis contract to build to help further the moon base project. And then we take it all the way through to predictive models on 30 years of imagery to predict what the weather looks like over a particular crop. So we're real end to end, which is fun. It gives us the ability to take a customer from their use case all the way to completion. And the company's got about 50-year history. We're all over the world. We've got a sales team in Canada. You saw John Roos there before, who runs it. And we're serving allied governments around the world, and trying to help pitch in and save our world, catch bad guys, but also help businesses make smart decisions. We've also got 1,400 cleared workers working on projects for the government. Most folks know us for our exquisite satellites. I come from outside the industry, so the first time I heard someone say that our satellites are exquisite, I thought they were tongue-in-cheek, but it's actually the scientific term for how powerful our satellites are. We're the first to do 30-centimeter resolution imagery, meaning 30 centimeters, the pixel. One pixel is 30 centimeters, so you can tell somebody's eating a pizza, but not what kind of pizza it is. We've been doing this for decades, but the most exciting year, to to be part of Maxar, and actually in the imagery business, is this year we're launching WorldView Legion, which will double our capacity, give us 15 revisits a day over each city. I mean, picture that. It used to take a year to create, the full Google Earth satellite imagery, and now we're going to be revisiting and refreshing it just every few hours. We're really getting to that vision of a living world. And when people ask, like, Dan, you were in the video game industry, you were at Amazon helping build some of the largest scale video games, why go into the space business? And it's that we now have a living globe in 2D and in 3D that's highly accurate. It's the biggest simulation in the world, and simulations are at the root of games. And so we can simulate the impact on the world of different criteria, whether it's war or asteroids, or even just making decisions about supply chains. What would it be like if I had 4 ships on this side of the Earth? Or what if I replace ships with planes? That's what a global simulation lets you do. It lets you run a Monte Carlo simulation and figure out what's the smartest thing I can do for my business, for my country, for the world. Some of the stats, are just mind-boggling. 4 million square kilometers a day that we deliver into our Secure Watch program, and we've got 100, and I think it's up to 160 petabytes of data in the archive that we carry. And I was at Amazon when we launched the Snowmobile. I don't know if people know, the Snowmobile is actually a large-scale truck, drives up to your business. You load up all of your hard drives physically, and they drive it over to AWS and load it up into the cloud. We were the first customer for that. That was the first time I'd heard the word Maxar. It's just a wild amount of data. And when people talk about big data, this is about as big as it gets. The ability to process the entire world over the course of 30 years and track house growth over time or weather over time. It's incredible. Why do we have exquisite satellites? Why does it matter? I like to show this for anyone who's relatively new to satellite imagery. It shows how important it is to get down to 30 centimeter pixels. You can read the name of the plane. And then our scientists have actually improved on 30 centimeters. Like out of the movies when they say enhance, these guys actually did it. That thing on the left is not a picture from space. It is a cleaned up, enhanced version of our 30 centimeter, and we sell it as an HD product. So when people say, how many United planes are in the air right now, we know. And I think what makes Maxar the incumbent and this technology so important is the breadth of the pass, right? So if you look at what some of the newer companies are doing, they've got a smaller bird that takes a more narrow pass. This is one pass over the Bay Area, and you can pick up everything from the buildings to the planes to the high school that my little brother went to. Maxar and Earth imagery in general has been synonymous with government and defense, and that's what's changing, and that's why I'm excited to be part of Maxar and part of this wave of imagery getting into the commercial world. And you see it with these SPACs coming in and money pouring into the industry. Satellite imagery is more important now than it ever was. I mean, if you need to make a real world simulation, you need satellite imagery. If you need to fly a drone and you're worried that GPS could be denied or down, you need satellite imagery. And to reconstruct a full version of the globe in 3D, you need satellite imagery. And so, you start seeing the use cases pile up and realize that we're in a boom for this industry, which I love. I mean, we've been working with the US government for, I think it's 40 years now, helping them make decisions on a global scale. And now, companies are getting access to the same kinds of data. It's really an exciting time to be in the industry. I think the stat I saw from our CMO is that 3 billion people use Maxar satellite imagery every day and are completely unaware. We are the foundation of, really any satellite imagery you look at on your phone or on a mapping application. That's us. We provide a cloudless, full global base map. Google calls it their gift to the world, that we can all see what's happening in the world at any time, or you can check an Airbnb before you go there. But Maxar's kind of done it under the radar. We've been so important to the government businesses that many customers and commercial users, they don't even know they're benefiting from Maxar's hard work. It's something that I'm really excited about as we go into this next 3D world. Some of our Canadian customers, we've had wonderful customers in Canada doing incredible things. I think we were talking about how satellite imagery can help environment and social governance. The Department of Fisheries, the DFO that you see up there, they've been tracking and protecting narwhals and belugas, which for you might sound like cows and horses, but for Americans, those are very exciting words: narwhals and belugas. And then TC Energy can monitor their whole pipeline. So with satellite imagery, you can see, is there a crack? Is somebody near my pipeline? Is there potentially a hazard, a felled tree? That's something that you can catch. And then one of our longest customers, Suncor Energy, they've been monitoring the Canadian oil sands for a decade or more. And then I like the story behind Statistics Canada, which they're tracking new housing development. So we can actually, over time, plot how many houses grow in a certain area and predict GDP growth. So if you're a coffee shop expanding, you can say, where are the upstart cities in Canada or in the world, and get a head start on your competition. Now, I'm talking about Maxar products, but these are the products in general in the industry, right? You've got the ability to access satellites. One of the unique things Maxar does is we give direct access to customers who can control our satellites and take pictures. But then you've got the imagery foundations that you'll see out there. I talked about our base map. And then you start getting into the higher order features. So looking at imagery, pulling out the cars, pulling out the trucks, the planes, the buildings, and starting to get into deeper products. This is where I want to transition to what I find the most exciting, and I think it helps make the video game connection. We purchased a company called Vrykon that was a joint venture with Saab, where we brought our image library, our petabytes, and they brought an algorithm that can connect all of the shots, thousands of shots, and reconstruct 3D at an accuracy of less than a meter, about a half meter accuracy. And this is one of my favorite places, Yosemite, in our full resolution, high resolution, precision 3D. And by the end of this year, we'll have 80 million square kilometers of precision 3D over the world. And so we're starting to get to that full global scale simulation. As I put this together, I thought, I took a trip to Banff in Canada, and I think it beats Yosemite. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful there, and I think most Americans don't get up there, and we still have so much pride in Yosemite, but Banff takes it out. So what are we going to do with this 3D version of the world? I mean, this is where you'll hear the word metaverse, or you'll hear the word Web3 or 3D web. What we're talking about is the next way to consume information. So it used to be paper, and then it was disk drives, and then it was the internet and laptops, and then we got to mobile phones. And this next iteration is immersion. So this 2D version we're doing right now, where I'm a flat face and you're all invisible behind Zoom, that's not what's going to win. What's going to win is an immersive experience where we have presence and we're together. And we're not there yet. If you go into VR, like Meta or Facebook's Horizons. You join, the avatars are clunky. We're still in V1 of this, but you can picture how it evolves, right? Instead of going to ESPN.com or the Canadian equivalent sports channel and seeing pictures of athletes, you're standing there, you're interacting with them, you're on the field. So every brand, every industry will have a immersive experience that you can take part in. It's just a new way to get information. I mean, picture shopping where you're actually walking down the aisles and looking at things and picking them up and turning them around. It's the next iteration of immersion. Anything that's real world that needs to be accurate or global in scale is going to need a 3D version of the world to pin it on. So if you're wearing Apple's AR glasses, which will look just like regular glasses, not like Google Glass where you're the person everybody's staring at, but just regular glasses like we're all used to wearing our Apple Watches at this point. And you look and see an overlay of information in the world, it has to be accurate. You can't have, some, the name of the street off by 5 meters or off by 15 meters. It's got to be right there. It's got to be accurate. And that image processing will use imagery as a base map. It's really exciting. And I have friends, of course, in the gaming industry who work in the game engines or work in game development. The idea of a global scale simulation is really exciting. In fact, if you ask Elon Musk, he'd say we're living in it right now. We are all in this simulation, listening to me talk. So we see Maxar, we see the world needing a geospatial reference. And this isn't, Maxar alone. This is a stack of middleware, if you will, that represents the truth about our world. Where are the trees? Where are the plants? What's the atmosphere look like? How's the weather trending? We'll help build that version of reality so that when people build applications on top of it, it's true, it's accurate, it's global scale. So our birds fly where planes can't. China, North Korea. You can't pop a drone up and check out the demilitarized zone, but satellites can. And maybe someday there'll be rules in space about where satellites can go, but for now, it's really hard to move a satellite once it's in orbit. So, that'll wrap me up. I'll take questions after this, but I like to end on a nice image. This is the Winter Olympics Stadium. You probably recognize. This is night satellite imagery, which is incredible. This is something that has barely touched the market. And what I like to tell people when I'm recruiting them to join Maxar is Maxar has capabilities that we don't even use yet because the use cases are very hard to explain. And sometimes the use cases aren't obvious. But for now, it's beautiful imagery. And so, John, I don't know how you're doing Q&A here, whether I pop up the chat or the Q&A. Do you sell imagery products to Russia? We have changed that policy recently. So in the past, we've helped commercial companies all over the world. But when it comes to imagery going to governments, we lock that down. Now, if we find that a company is leaking imagery or moving imagery beyond its scope and our contracts, then we pull it. But right now, we work with the rest of the governments to ensure that troops are not in danger. Let's put it that way.
Hey, Dan. So I'm going to go back on video to join you for the Q&A. Thanks so much for that. I think if you stop sharing your screen, yeah, there we go. Great keynote. Thanks. Learned a lot about what's coming. The metaverse stuff I find very interesting. I always like to take an opportunity myself to ask some questions that I'm interested in.
Oh, please do.
The metaverse, like obviously Maxar's, yeah, a huge foundational piece is the imagery, the georeferencing. I like to get sometimes down to some specifics. Maybe you can give us share some ideas or any thoughts. We were, the pandemic, COVID, we've seen a lot of difficulties in the areas of education and kids and their experiences. Is there a component to the metaverse that you see in the future that could, help?
Yeah, for education, absolutely. I mean, picture stepping into a VR version of Google Earth where you can get down into a specific location and the devices are tied together so that a teacher can say, all right, we're going on a field trip to Paris, right? And now instead of just the local science center, you're traveling around the world and getting immersive experiences, talking directly to people in France, hearing the language. We're not at the point where you're tasting the food yet, which would be more
I think
interesting.
smell is coming.
Smell of vision. I did a VR experience where they had set up fans and fire and others, and your brain is tricked. And I don't know the demographic of this area, this conference, but if you're over 40, this stuff does not make sense. But if you do buy a Quest and you do go into VR, you'll see the level of immersion is incredible. In fact, if you do one of these horror video games, it'll stick with you. You have PTSD. And so one of the interesting things about VR is that they use it for desensitization, for PTSD. For soldiers, they use it for getting over fears, like heights. We're right at the beginning of how immersive experiences can change behavior in education. So I see that as a wonder. The problem is it won't be a big money maker to start. And I come from video games where any game that has an educational component is called broccolyware. It's the vegetables, and it doesn't make as much money. So it requires either getting subsidized, or a benevolent company that's not trying to earn money.
When there's a need, when you can't be in the classroom, you can't bring the kids together, that, even like the virtual events like these, it's about what can we do, and not making perfect the enemy of the good, of saying, well, if we can't do it this way, we're not going to do it at all. And I see certainly in education circles, they got to do what they can.
And that's the thing. The metaverse won't impact, the 1% or the 5%. But if you're living somewhere where you have very little access to information, but you have great Wi-Fi because of Starlink or something, you can participate in education at a premier university. You can, walk through a library in a city. This will have a profound impact on the broader scale of humanity, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I hitchhiked around Europe when I was 19 to get that kind of grand tour experience. Now people be a lot cheaper just to do it online.
Yeah, Fortnite Paris. There you go.
Yeah. So we have some questions coming in on the Q&A. So let's have a look.
Yeah, let's do it. You mentioned this. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. There's one here from Kim. I'll read it out for the audience. Kim says, thanks for the presentation. High resolution data are useful, but they are expensive. Do you think in the near future, we will have a better price package for private and industry communities?
Yeah, no, and we hear this back from customers as well. Someone will say, hey, we'd like that resolution for the whole globe, and we'll check our price chart and say that'll be $500 million. It's not possible. But what we're coming up with is new ways to work with small companies and mid-sized companies. We've started doing value trades with smaller companies. Or you look at what we did with Vrykon. We did a joint venture where we provide imagery and someone else provides either money or capabilities. But my goal is that we deliver imagery more like Amazon delivers EC2, web servers, where imagery is accessible, easy to get to, and because of the scale and the automation, the price comes down. But right now, it's expensive to build satellites and get the imagery down. And so, the governments and the larger companies have benefited, but there's so much we can do at the smaller level. once this gets into the hands. I mean, look, we put our base map into Esri, and I think that's our channel into the scientific community. If you use Esri at all and you pull satellite imagery, odds are you're getting Maxar imagery.
Cool. They're speaking of small amounts of data. O'Neill Crumby's asking, hi, Dan, do you sell imagery to individuals on a small scale, like 1 kilometer?
Yeah, just give me the coordinates. I'll write it down. No, actually, so we played with that in the past, but right now we do the industry on a whole, and Maxar as a part of it is a little more manual because it was large scale orders, and so that's something that you'll certainly see coming from Maxar in the future, the ability to generate smaller squares for folks. But right now, 1 square kilometer, our ARD product, which is analysis ready data, that sits at a single square kilometer.
Okay. There's a question here from John. Do you see any future in Maxar's capability scope to collect over the moon and Mars? That's some future facing.
See, that's a question I like. Absolutely. I mean, that's what's going to be next. Once we're mining on the moon, we'll need the imagery to find out where the precious metals are, and multispectral imagery can actually go and hint or tip towards where heavy metals are down on the moon. And we're also building the Psyche spacecraft, which is going to go circle that asteroid that's made out of metal. That's a Maxar project.
Oh, wow.
Which is exciting. But Mars, I believe if you sign up for Starlink, you cede all your power to Elon over Mars, and in which case he might dominate the skies over Mars.
Yeah, as long as I get my good internet.
There you go.
There's another question here from Colleen. Great presentation. Thank you. You mentioned most of the world will be covered in 3D by the end of the year. Where won't there be coverage and why?
Yeah, when we decide where to pick up 3D and where to create it, it's actually a very taxing process and computationally demanding. And so we have to be pretty deliberate about where we create our 3D. So it turns out the majority of humanity lives, within a certain band of the world. And so you'll get less 3D over places like the oceans or the North and South poles. The goal is to have higher granularity around cities and where economic development is happening, and then in places that are interesting either to the government and military of certain allies. But the way the math works on what we collect, what we task, and how we pull the 3D together is incredibly complex simulation to maximize from the tasking asks of our customers and then the needs of our vivid base map, because we guarantee that we're collecting new imagery over half the world every 6 months. And so to figure out where to fly, where to take the pictures, it's really a very cool piece of technology.
Yeah, and you need it's got to be cloudless, right?
Yeah, there are a couple places where that is an interesting one. I come in new to the industry, and the first thing I find out is half of our pictures are of clouds.
Yeah.
It's tragic. But we do use SAR to look through clouds and look through smoke so that we can track fires. That's one of the cooler things that Maxar does.
Great. We're almost into the break, but we've got time for another question. I've got one from John. Thanks, Dan. This might be a follow-on from a previous question of his. Follow-on would be leveraging the Vrykon process to generate precision 3D. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, for Mars. No, for Mars. So I think I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, theoretically, we have enough imagery of Mars to use precision 3D to start creating a accurate base map of Mars. I hadn't thought about it. John, or send me an email on who would buy it, and then we'll figure out if we should go make it.
All right, Dan. Well, that takes us to the end of the Q&A. I want to
so much.
thank you so much for Maxar being here personally, and Maxar being our platinum sponsor.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.